Hello, and welcome to the Buddha of the Basin. Christian Dane DeBlanc here, Karen Crow, Louisiana, coming at you. February the 2nd, 2026. Recently revealed additional Epstein documentation makes it undeniable. We know it was ritualistic child sacrifice. It wasn't just underage girls and sex parties. We see the whole enchilada now. The woman Gabriella, the model who was never seen from again, you can look her up. She's been brought back to life. When she was on camera saying, they eat people, they eat people. And then she was never heard from again. This was about 4 years ago. The truth is, this is what David Icke has been speaking about. Now, I think Elena Danon's information is critical. Enlil, the being or deity that's also called you, spelled Y-U, but I think that becomes our modern you. And also Hu, as in humans. Yu was a son of Anu. Yes, we get that from the Anunnaki. But Yu was also the son of a reptilian mother named Tia. She was a queen. There was a peace made between these two great galactic empires, the Anak and the reptilian Alpha Draconian Sikar. And Earth was where Yu was allowed to be king of sorts, be God. Okay, while his brother Anki or Ea was banished after the fallout that was the end of Atlantis. So for the past 13,000 years on this planet, darkness has reigned. Yu, Enlil, his empire, his half-reptilian bloodlines have run this planet. So that's what you see, half-reptilian bloodlines who still like to ritualistically feed off of humans. Much like the Old Testament, God, if you will, demanded sacrifice. Tens of thousands, heads of cattle. There was a pleasing aroma. These were beings with technology, but also with appetites, shall we say, who wanted to be viewed as gods by intellectually, younger and perhaps inferior beings, as in us humans. As Elena Denon points out, before a race can achieve full consciousness and full consciousness and full sovereignty tend to go together. Once you achieve full consciousness, then you can truly become sovereign on your own planet. And that's what the human race is getting to right now. Kicking the bastards out, so to speak, and becoming one sovereign human race on this planet, sharing all the common lands. That's the vision that Mother Mary had given to the German people around the 14th century, which started the Anabaptist, which was then perverted into communism. It was a very powerful signal being given to a people who were very, very willing to fight for freedom. And that spirit is still the same spirit that will take the planet. It's of planetary sovereignty, independence, and just sharing the common land as a treasure for all people. The Native American idea. It's what Chief Seattle said. We don't own the water, we don't any more than we own the stars in the sky. So as the AI data centers come to take our water, and as drought settles in on most of the planet, it's obvious that there needs to be a change of the guard, a changing of the guard. And Candace Owens having Bassem Youssef on her platform last week was huge. And the only missing piece here is that Emmanuel, whom we've called Jesus for 2,000 years, did say Muhammad was coming in 500 years. Emmanuel came 500 years after the Buddha. These were not accidental. These were deployments. These were avatar incarnations. Okay, so Muhammad was last. He was supposed to write down everything that was said to him, just like Jesus described the comforter. He'll just tell you what he's been told. He's not going to say things on his own like I am. He won't have all of my gifts. He'll be able to tell you what he's told, which is what the Quran is. Gabriel tells him and he writes it. It's exactly what Jesus said. But of course, the Jewish people, and the Roman people did not really wish. And to this day, we see those two cultures, that the modern European state, the modern EU, which is the modern Holy Roman Empire, and the modern state of Israel do not want to recognize Muhammad, do not want to recognize Islam and these legitimate Islamic states such as Iran. And thus we are here again at the point on the verge of bombing Iran. But Russia and China have given support, as in the East is uniting. Okay, the east of the planet, everything east of the prime meridian. Europe is in a bit of chaos, but Russia and Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, even the once warring parties of Pakistan and India, there's still some friction between the Middle Eastern states, UAE and Saudi Arabia, Yemen. But that's because that's what Israel and the West is trying to do. Is still trying to prop up in an area around Yemen, prop up another Saudi-style kingdom. Of course, the Saudis are no longer on board. What I'm trying to get at is that this is a post-colonial moment. While the AI tech overlords seek to establish a neo-colonialism using AI, and we see the Western powers are trying to reestablish colonialism, in Venezuela perhaps, Greenland perhaps. We see the world as saying no to the colonialism. We're in post-colonialism now, which is why the elite have turned to depopulation, because as Zbigniew Brzezinski once said, it's easier to kill 1 million people than to actually rule over them. So the robots and the AI are essentially ready. They can roll out new mRNA vaccine viruses to reduce the population. Drought, war can also, now we have cold, sinister, HARP-induced cold, can do the same thing. But I digress. The goal of this was the good and the bad, seeing Epstein as related back to a half reptilian, half human royal bloodline that went back to the Anunnaki son named Enlil, or Yu, the son of Anu. And of course, the brother is Anki, and this Anki is the one who helps Noah. The real story of Noah is that Anki is told he can't offer assistance, so he has to appear in a dream. He has to speak from behind a reed wall, so it's as if the reed wall is speaking to Noah, which is similar to Moses. It's not that he appears directly to Moses. He appears as a burning bush to Moses. This is who initially helps the Israelites. Apparently, it's Anki and Ea. But after they begin to desire power, which is when you see the golden calf, Moses destroys those original tablets, who were from, or which were from Ea, supposedly, are his group, his children, his faction, so to speak. They become aligned with the Enlil faction, who turns them into murderers, who kill them all, leave none alive, which is where we get Amalek, right, where King Saul kills the warriors, of course, but he wants to save the spoils, make a deal with the king and the royalty, the prince, etc., and leave the women and let them spare their lives, of course. And this is where Yahweh says, no way. This is where King David is chosen. We get that part of the story. Saul is never quite the same. He goes crazy. Remember, he tries to kill David. But what is he? What is his big sin against God? Well, the big sin is not killing them all. You see, Samuel has to come and kill the king of Amalek. This is the same thing with Joshua. You know, when they go to Jericho, and then later Ai, they're supposed to they kill everybody in Jericho. And Ai, right? Or is it Achan, one guy, like actually keeps a few spoils, and Yahweh gets PO'd about it. So there is this move in the modern state of Israel to obey that commandment, if you will, that was given regarding Amalek. So they have this bloodthirsty mindset because that's what they believe they were told to do in the Old Testament, but it's a complete rejection of the New Testament, never mind Muhammad and the Quran, which says respect peoples of the book, and if people are prepared to convert, receive their conversion, be merciful whenever possible, only fight them if they've shown that they're going to fight you, they fight you first. Blessed are the peacemakers. That there is more continuity between the words of Jesus, Emmanuel, and then Muhammad than there are, at least in the actual stories of the Old Testament, if they were taught to us fully. You see, we get the David story, we don't ever get the Amalek piece. Well, that can't be God demanding that we kill them all. But that's what we have to come smack dab to right now, to say, no, that's just an inferior extraterrestrial being who is trying to be king of this planet. To say there are no other gods above me, suggesting there are other powerful ones. I'm just the one that wants to be the most powerful one. Maybe because I'm a son of Anu, I'm going to be destined to get that. But there were other gods. So it's a different view on Jesus, just that he's not the son of God. That's illogical. He's actually the son of Gabriel, the same Gabriel who, chooses Mary, which makes sense. It's like it's the missing piece in our story. Gabriel chooses Mary, "O Mary, thou art worthy." And now this text, the Talmud of Emmanuel, doesn't say how Gabriel goes about impregnating Mary. So you're left to your own devices. But this Talmud of Emmanuel, which is discovered supposedly by his son, if you will, in India, and then brought to his burial place, the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, and outside of Jerusalem, and then discovered by Albert Billy Meyer, and the priest, former priest Isa Rashid, in like 1967. Where Isa Rashid's later killed after he can translate some of it to German and some of it to Billy. So we get a piece of this as the Talmud of Emmanuel, that Billy Meyer, famous Pleiadian contactee, Plagiaran contactee, the Figu, Figu, Billy Meyer, you type those things in, or the Talmud of Emmanuel, you'll find it. It's actually where the Gospel of Matthew comes from. And the Gospel of Matthew is actually the first of the 4 books. It's not, as we've been told, it's not Mark. Matthew is actually where we get Emmanuel, the Emmanuel prophecy from Isaiah. A virgin shall give birth. Now you say it's a maiden, a virgin. Gabriel is the father. That's the most important thing. His powers, his foreknowledge of events. You can simply argue he's a son of an advanced extraterrestrial and a human. And that's the angel as a messenger, not as a direct emissary of God, but as an part of the angelic or messenger host of extraterrestrial beings who are more advanced, who are trying to help us because they had a hand in originally seeding us on this planet, but who don't want to interfere fully. You see, that's the law of free will that Star Trek gives to us. You see, religion needs to let science fiction back in, because science and fiction, the only way we can understand any of this, we need a little bit of sci-fi to reconcile ourselves to reincarnation on this world with extraterrestrials who are powerless to really help us completely, because it would violate our free will and it would set us back psychologically. We have to come to a place of sovereignty, recognizing our own sovereignty. So that's what it's really about. It's about not letting the government tell you that You have to do this, you have to believe this way. You're sovereign. You have your own immortal spirit. That's what Jesus, Emmanuel, really tried to convey. That's reincarnated with you, that is there in the subconscious, like Jung was suggesting, that the deeper self is mostly buried, if you will. I'm making fun of how Candace Owens says buried. God help me. It's the one thing that she does. Barry, like Barry Soetoro, the Obama's first name. It's it's buried in the subconscious, and that's where the power is. This magical personality power comes from awakening it from the subconscious, and that's done with the sort of kundalini energy. The kundalini does arouse you sort of spiritually as well as sexually. It's just an arousing energy, and if it's not properly channeled, straight as the way and narrow as the gate, it can lead to some psychological deviations. What it's meant to do is nourish you biologically with a bit of that energy of the creator, that chi, that life force energy that is really just trying to awaken your DNA, which we got from these cedar beings, these 4 and 20 elder races. They've come back, and that's who really is in charge, along with the logos. But the logos, as the game designer, he really wants us to play the game. The 24 elder races are here to make sure no evil agenda wins out, if you will, unless it's one that humans actually choose. Just that the reptilians and the greys aren't going to be able to externally or from outside do anything. They've been kicked off this planet, so to speak. It's just the bloodlines that go back to Enlil and the technology that we have developed here, this AI that will be used to hoist and foist over upon us some kind of all-seeing panopticon system, social credit scores, and if presuming at that point Israel has made the third temple and this and that, this abomination, you won't be able to say anything about it. But all their plan doesn't. They lose. Russia is what Edgar Casey saw. That's why the Illuminati tried to destroy Russia from Napoleon to Hitler to now with Ukraine, and they've all failed. This is the third and final attempt. Russia is a mainstay force for peace because the Galactic Federation has spoken to them just like they spoke to Eisenhower, except with our United States deep state, the MJ-12, the Majestic 12, agreed with the Greys, made the deal, and so we began to be abducted and experimented upon. That, to my knowledge, didn't happen in Russia, but I could be wrong. So the United States became the great evil at that point in the world. It's not because we were evil. The evil that was once with the Nazis, the reptilians, and the evil Anunnaki that spoke to Maria Orsic in 1917, that's the 30s, they moved over here, Operation Paperclip, Project Paperclip. We became the evil space empire. We tried to we left the planet and started a slave, so to speak, system on Mars, trying to pseudo colonize it with people that were from the military who were then split. Their consciousness and psyche was split. They were just given all types of terrible treatments and used as fodder and as slaves. That's what Alain Denon has reported on. But it appears that much of that has been brought to an end by the Galactic Federation, which Ra calls a confederation of planets in the Law of One material, which Elaine Denon has called the Galactic Federation. She's spoken of the Cedars returning as well. So the good guys are this intergalactic group that originally seeded this planet. So they've all returned. It's like this cloud atlas is a consciousness. There's a plasma-based consciousness in there, taking things in, looking at us. This alignment is happening as Earth is going to be energized into a sort of magnetic pole shift within our psyche. The left hemisphere is going to give way to the right hemisphere, the brain. Male will give way once again to female. We will return to the proper human perspective that we were intended to have as sort of a magical creative race, co-creating in harmony with the planet. That's we've been perverted and inverted. I think of the George Harrison song "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." That whole method based upon the sort of logic of the left hemisphere, the syntactic linear mathematical logic. But we know now that mathematics is also geometric and musical, and There's we can attain more knowledge and hold more knowledge using the sound symbolic right hemisphere. The deeper emotional, the deeper intuitive right hemisphere is meant to be the part that rules over us, and that is the master to the emissary of the left hemisphere, who's supposed to be a servant, um, as many have alluded to recently. So Carl Johann Kalaman, the Mayan scholar, suggested that the Earth, the Western Hemisphere, where the United States is equivalent to the left hemisphere of the brain, whereas Asia is really more the right hemisphere. That's the Eastern Hemisphere. And so we've become dominant, the United States, from Europe. First, Europe became with this Renaissance. The Europeans became sort of dominant in the world with the printing press and Gutenberg and Christian religion and capitalism and democracy from Greece to Germany to Great Britain, and lastly to the United States. But now we see with Trump, it's the end of this era, where the end of our Roman era is over, and China and Russia and India will hold the balance of power there. We will move east. Islam, Buddhism will unite with Eastern Orthodox Christianity in Russia. You'll see their religions blend, and you'll have to see this dissolving of what was Judaism. You can keep the Kabbalah, we'll keep the Old Testament, but we're going to stop looking for a Messiah who's already come and who told us that Muhammad was coming next. There is no more conquering Messiah. There's just one avatar left who's here. That's this last Buddha Kalki avatar. But there's not the Messiah that Judaism wanted. That was always this conquering Messiah that was never in the cards for them, because they got it by murder, and killing people and taking their land, just like the United States, come in and take the Native Americans' land and dare to call them inferior, because we have this idea of property and ownership, and that's left hemispheric thought. It's who are you? This is my job. This is my house. This is who I am. This defines me and sustains me. And of course, your job and your house don't define or sustain you. Even your idea of a relationship defining you, that's also not true. No, your connection to your higher self, which is your immortal spirit, is what defines and sustains you. Learning the lessons that you're meant to learn in this lifetime. You see, so that's a Buddhist perspective. That's also what Jesus was all about, but that's been wiped out of the Bible. You get very few instances. He does say that Elijah is back as John, or he came back as John the Baptist, and they did to him just like they wanted to, as in they killed him, chopped his head off. But he was Elijah reincarnated. And when they asked him, why was this man born blind? Did he sin or did his parents sin? Well, if he was just born, how could he have sinned unless they meant he sinned in a past life? We get the sense that reincarnation has always been there. As the only way to make sense of it. We're not asked to be judge and jury over another soul. That's for God. That can be put out into the next lifetime, where the soul can forget what they've done and then make choices that show they've learned the lesson. That's kind of how God does it. You're brought to the next poker game, and here's your cards. You don't know what the cards were in your previous hand. You've forgotten that you played a hand, so it's all brand new to you. And that's how it is. In that space, we choose love and compassion. And we say, Om Shanti. Om